Hello, and welcome to another episode of Saints and Sinners. My name is Derek Atkins, and in this series, we are currently on a journey through the book of Second Chronicles. And as we go through Second Chronicles, we are seeing what this book can tell us about who God is and what God is like, as well as who we are and what we are like. Today, we're going to be looking at the issue of justice. Within each one of us is a deep desire for justice. And we can see this all around us. We see this in the popularity of movies such as A Few Good Men and To Kill a Mockingbird, or the popularity of TV shows such as Law and Order or Perry Mason. We also see this in the attention that a lot of people pay to major court trials, such as the trial of O.J. Simpson, the George Floyd murder trial, and as well as the trial of Jeffrey Epstein. We also see this in the demands that many people make today for justice. So we see that there is this desire for justice in the hearts of almost every single person who is alive. But why do we have such a strong desire for justice? Well, the reason why we have this strong desire for justice is because we want to see the wicked punished and the righteous rewarded. But what we see is often just the opposite. We often see that the wicked are not punished and sometimes literally get away with murder. And at the same time, we see that the righteous suffer even when they do the right thing. And when we see this, our hearts cry out, this is wrong, and we demand to see justice done. So today, we are going to look at what the Bible has to say about justice, and we'll see who is the only one who can bring about true justice in this world. So today, I am reading from Second Chronicles chapter 6, verses 22 and 23. Now, Second Chronicles chapter 6 is a long prayer that was prayed by King Solomon during the dedication of the temple in Jerusalem. Earlier in Second Chronicles, we read about how King Solomon built the temple in Jerusalem. And then after the temple was finished, the priests and all of the entire nation of Israel gathered to dedicate the temple in Jerusalem. And so this prayer is part of that dedication service. And so these two verses are from this prayer. This is King Solomon praying. When a man wrongs his neighbor and is required to take an oath, and he comes and swears the oath before your altar in this temple, then hear from heaven and act. Judge between your servant, repaying the guilty by bringing down on his own head what he has done. Declare the innocent not guilty, and so establish his innocence. So these two verses are talking about justice. In verse 22, it talks about oath taking. Now, the first time oath taking is mentioned in the Jewish law is back in Exodus 22, verses 10 through 12. And this is what it says in Exodus. If a man gives a donkey, an ox, or a sheep, or any other animal to his neighbor for safekeeping and it dies or is injured or is taken away while no one is looking, the issue between them will be settled by the taking of an oath before the Lord that the neighbor did not lay hands on the other person's property. The owner is to accept this and no restitution is required. But if the animal was stolen from the neighbor, he must make restitution to the owner. And so in this first instance of oath taking that we see in the Jewish law, oath taking is connected with protecting property rights. Now, later, oath taking was later expanded to include accusations of any wrongdoing, not just issues of protecting property rights. Now, when the Israelites took their oath before God, they were invoking God's presence. They were calling God to be present, to be a witness, and to act as a judge between the parties involved in the case. This is similar to what we do in modern courtrooms when we place our hand on the Bible and we take an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help us God. Now, this is a traditional oath that many of us are familiar with, but when we take that oath in a court of law, we are calling on God to be present and to be a witness to the case. And we are calling on him as the supreme judge. Now, that leads us to verse 23, where God is portrayed as the supreme judge. In verse 23, Solomon says, "Judge calls upon God, judge between your servant, repaying the guilty and upholding the righteous." And so here, King Solomon calls upon God as the supreme justice. And here, King Solomon recognizes God as the supreme justice. And so this teaches us something very important, because God is the one who sets the standard for right and wrong, not humans, not us. You see, the standards of right and wrong are not set by us humans. It is not set by society. The standards of right and wrong are set by God himself. And this is really important, because this means that what's right and wrong are universal and unchanging. They do not change as society changes. They are the same for all time and for all places and for all people and for all circumstances. So God's laws are universal and they are unchanging. They are for all people, all places, all times, and all circumstances. And these laws include many of the moral commandments that you and I are already familiar with, such as do not steal, do not murder, do not lie, do not commit adultery, honor your father and mother, keep the Sabbath day holy, you shall worship the Lord your God only, you shall not make any false image or any idols, you shall not covet your neighbor's property, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. So these laws are universal. And in this verse 23, we also see the biblical definition of justice, because King Solomon asked God to judge between your servant, repaying the guilty by bringing down on his own head what he has done. At the same time, he asked God, declare the innocent not guilty, and so establish his innocence. And so here we see the biblical definition of justice right here declared in the Bible. And what is the biblical definition of justice? Well, the biblical definition of justice is punishing the wicked and vindicating the innocent. That is biblical justice, to punish those who do wrong and to uphold those who do right, to reward those who do right. Now, what makes this truth so difficult for us to accept is that we often see so much injustice in our world. We see the wicked get away with wrongdoing. In fact, we often see the wicked get rewarded for doing what is evil. And this is one of the things that makes us really angry. And at the same time, we see the righteous suffer. In fact, we often see the righteous, those who are doing the right thing, get punished for doing what is right. You know, there's the cynical joke, no good deed goes unpunished. Well, that is a very cynical joke, but why do people enjoy telling this joke? Well, it's because in many cases, those who do right are punished for doing what is right. And this is another thing that makes us really angry, and it makes us cry out for justice. And in these, right is called wrong, wrong is called right, good is called evil, evil is called good. And this is another thing, this is another great injustice that is going on right now. Right now, especially in America and other Western countries, and indeed around the world, many of our ideas, many of the things that we were taught while growing up about right and wrong are being turned upside down. What was once right is now called wrong. What was once wrong is now called right. And this is a great injustice. So we are going through a period in our history when great injustices are being done. And ironically, these great injustices are often being done in the very name of justice, in the very name of righting past wrongs. However, there is nothing new under the sun, because people felt this same anger at injustice thousands of years ago. In fact, I am going to read you a passage from Psalm 37, verses 1 through 20, basically the first half of Psalm 37. And this psalm expresses this same desire for justice. Here's what it says. Do not fret because of evil men, or be envious of those who do wrong, for like the grass, they will soon wither. Like green plants, they will soon die away. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him, and he will do this. He will make your righteousness shine like the dawn, the justice of your cause like the noonday sun. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when men succeed in their ways, when they carry out their wicked schemes. Refrain from anger and turn from wrath. Do not fret. It only leads to evil. For evil men will be cut off, but those who hope in the Lord will inherit the land. A little while, and the wicked will be no more. Though you look for them, they will not be found. But the meek will inherit the land and enjoy great peace. The wicked plot against the righteous and gnash their teeth at them. But the Lord laughs at the wicked, for he knows their day is coming. The wicked draw the sword and bend the bow to bring down the poor and needy, to slay those whose ways are upright. But their swords will pierce their own hearts, and their bows will be broken. Better the little that the righteous have than the wealth of many wicked. For the power of the wicked will be broken, but the Lord upholds the righteous. The days of the blameless are known to the Lord, and their inheritance will endure forever. In times of disaster, they will not wither. In days of famine, they will enjoy plenty. But the wicked will perish. The Lord's enemies will be like the beauty of the field. They will vanish like smoke. And this is a powerful psalm, because this psalm shows us not only that there has always been this desire for justice, even thousands of years ago, but it gives us a wonderful promise. The promise, because here the psalmist is urging believers not to worry when wicked men prosper in their ways, in their evil ways. How can we do that? How is it possible for us to not worry when we see evil men succeeding in their evil and even prospering and getting away with evil? How can we not worry? How can we not fret when we see that kind of injustice? The way we can not worry when we see that kind of injustice is to trust in this promise that one day God will visit judgment upon the wicked. One day the wicked will be no more, and God will judge them. And the righteous will be rewarded. Throughout history, there have been grave injustices. For example, during World War II, the Nazis committed unspeakable acts of horror against Jews, other Europeans, and even against Blacks. For example, I was reading a book recently about the fall of France, about the battle, how the German army conquered France in May and June of 1940. And what really, one of the things that caught my attention was that a good number of the soldiers who fought to defend France were actually soldiers of the Foreign Legion from North Africa. These and other French colonies in Africa. These were Africans. They were Black, and they often fought very courageously to defend France against the Germans. And unfortunately, a good number of them were captured. And when the Germans captured them, guess what happened? Things did not go well for these Blacks, because these German soldiers were so upset that these Black soldiers had fought so courageously against them and had halted, had actually slowed down their progress through France. And they were just so enraged that these men who were supposedly of, quote, the inferior race had actually had the audacity to resist the superior race of Germans, that they ended up murdering them. Bam. They often killed these black soldiers in all contravention to the Geneva Convention. They did not obey the Geneva Convention, and they murdered these black POWs. And that is just one small example of the many atrocities that the Nazis committed during World War II. Well, thankfully, Nazi Germany was defeated in the end. And after World War II, the Allied powers of the Soviet Union, France, Britain, and the United States held the Nuremberg trials in the city of Nuremberg in Germany. And in these trials, they tried Nazi war criminals, such as Karl Dönitz, who was the head of the Kriegsmarine, the German Navy, Hermann Goering, who was the head of the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, Rudolf Hess, Alfred Jodl, Wilhelm Keitel, Joachim von Ribbentrop, who was Hitler's foreign minister, Albert Speer, and others. All of these men were tried for war crimes. Now, the good news is that some of the men who were tried were found not guilty. They were acquitted. But the other men who did commit war crime were found guilty, and they were sentenced either to long prison terms or they were sentenced to death. And a good number of these men were hanged because of their war crimes. And so we see that even though they committed unspeakable acts of horror, these men were held responsible and they were punished for their wrongdoing. And at the same time, the Jews who suffered so much under Nazi Germany were able to begin a new nation, the nation of Israel, which was born on May the 14th, 1948, just a few short years after Adolf Hitler tried to wipe them off the face of the earth. These Jews who had survived so much, injustice, finally got to have their own nation once again. And so we see how the righteous were rewarded. And so, my friends, we have this wonderful promise that one day Jesus will come back. Jesus himself promised us that he will come back. And when he does, he will bring perfect justice. All who have done wrong will be punished, and evil will be no more. And at the same time, the righteous will be rewarded. And the righteous, and as Jesus himself promises in Matthew 13:48, the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. And we have this wonderful promise. So when you see injustice, when you feel injustice, do not lose heart, because one day Jesus will come back and he will bring perfect peace and justice. And then there truly will be justice for all. Well, thank you very much for watching today's episode of Saints and Sinners. If you enjoyed today's episode, please smash the like button. And if you want to see more episodes like this, please click on the subscribe button. And if you have any comments you'd like to make, please write your comments below. Until next time, God, have a wonderful week and God bless you. Goodbye.